Hi, it's Dwyer. It's the day after the third fight. Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano, which went the distance, which Katie Taylor won on the scorecards. Let's talk about it, but first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Folks, first, let me just say this. It was MVP Promotions, Jake Paul, right? Just understand that the gate for this fight was twice the gate. Let me repeat that. Twice the gate for the first Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight. So financially, this fight was a huge success. Understand, Jake Paul is great for boxing in more ways than simply being a fighter. Right? This is a guy who's on the cutting edge. He's delivering value. I'm sure Eddie Hearn is thrilled with the gate at this fight, right? Sellout crowd. Let me just say, women's sports, this is one of the great moments, right? It's a very bullish time for women's sports right now in the United States. Out here in the Bay Area, the WNBA team is extremely successful financially. It's actually one of the most successful financially in the WNBA, and it's a new franchise, right? So let me just acknowledge that women's boxing keeps hitting higher highs, as does women's athletics in general. Pay close attention to the trend. Now, all of that said, I'm a bit surprised that the fight was as bad as it was. Right, folks? It was awful. And I'm really surprised, too, by the subdued reaction to it. Right? If, the Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda fight later today, or the Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz fight later today, features the little action that this third fight did, I would expect the sports page to have several articles talking about what a bad fight it was. Right? Understand, if William Zepeda comes out against Shakur Stevenson, and Stevenson's moving, and the best Zepeda can do is land 70 punches over 10 rounds. Let's do the math. That's 7 punches landed a round. Right? Just understand, it would be hard for him to convince judges that he's done enough as an underdog to beat the favorite. Right? Let me just say, I don't know what Amanda Serrano was thinking. I'm puzzled. I'm also puzzled by the double standard. Folks, she needed to make a case here. She's down 0-2 in the series. Right? You're the party that needs to change the current dynamic. You're fighting in your hometown. Right, folks? Serrano needed to come out and be much more aggressive than she was. Right? The first round, I believe they said something like 3 punches landed in the first round. Folks, that's simply not acceptable. Folks, it's a third fight. Let me name 3 interesting third fights. The Thriller in Manila. Right? The Marquez Ismael Valdez third fight. How about the Bo Holyfield third fight? Folks, if it's a third fight, and you understand, I need to make a statement, especially when you didn't win either of the first 2 fights, then you've got to come out, you've got to throw punches. Now, I understand Katie Taylor has the faster feet. We understand that. But Serrano is supposed to have the edge in power. Right, folks? I was expecting her to come across the ring and to make Katie Taylor look like she was running. Right? You needed a Shakur Stevenson, Edwin De Los Santos dynamic here. Instead, what we got was the fighter who's down 0-2 landing 70 punches over 10 rounds. I didn't understand what Serrano was doing. I saw Serrano throwing a jab when Taylor's backing away. Right, folks, those jabs weren't going to land. Where were the power shots? Where was the aggression? Right? So, to me, I'll just put this diplomatically. In a slow fight, the fighter with the quicker feet who's making you miss, who's circling you, who comes in occasionally and has the faster hands, has the flurries, they're going to be very competitive. That's the fight Katie Taylor fought. Understand, Katie Taylor only landed 70 punches, according to CompuBox. What they're telling you is that these two women per round, and granted, it's 2-minute rounds, right? You can't compare it directly to the numbers in men's fights. But they were landing, on average, in a third match, 14 punches per round. Folks, all I can say is, if you're the underdog, now granted, the fight was mispriced. We talked about this before the fight. Katie Taylor went off at a plus 150, plus 160. But just understand, if you are the fighter who didn't win the first two fights, you can't have the fight be a fight where, number one, the woman who won the first two fights is matching you in punches landed, and number two, there are only 14 punches total being landed per round. Right? So, Amanda Serrano had the wrong strategy here, folks. Let me say this too. You're fighting in front of your fans. You're fighting in your hometown. You have to give them things to cheer. Right? This reminded me of when Gervonta Davis traveled to the UK. He was fighting some fighter who wasn't throwing a lot of punches. And you thought, hey, don't you realize the fans aren't here to cheer for Gervonta Davis? They're here to cheer for you. Give them a reason to cheer for you. Right here, I'm looking at Amanda Serrano and I'm thinking, wow, can't someone in her corner tap her on the shoulder and say, hey, woman, you're fighting in New York City. These are your folks. Chase after Katie Taylor. You hit harder than Katie Taylor. Throw some punches. Throw some volume. Show the crowd you hit harder than her. Right? Katie Taylor has what? Some abrasion under an eye. The fight's a polite fight. Do you want a polite fight in the third fight? Do you? Right? I know people are saying, hey, the fight's close. Folks, when you're the person who lost the first two, you don't want a close fight. Right? So there's a saying in boxing, right? You have to beat the champ to take his title. Now let me just say, the way they structured this fight, Amanda Serrano leaves the ring with her titles. Right? But understand, for her to beat Katie Taylor after losing the first two, and I don't care who you thought actually won the first two, right? Officially, it's 0-2 going into this. Right? Just understand that you have to make the case. At the end of the fight, people are going to say, wow, did Serrano do enough to change the tide? Now, in real time here, by the way, I have the fight. Look at it while you have the opportunity in my favorites folder right now. You'll notice in the seventh round, in the seventh round of a 10-round fight, that's the third matchup between these two. Andre Ward on the telecast says, somebody has got to step it up. Again, he says, somebody's got to step it up. Folks, if you've lost the first two fights and you haven't stepped it up 70% into the third fight, you're not getting it done. Right? So I have, because this fight was such low volume, because the pacing of the fight was slower than the other two, I have no objection at all with Katie Taylor being awarded the win. Right? Let me just say, to change the tide, you've got to change your game. You've got to up the ante, not lower the ante. I didn't think Amanda Serrano did that, and I was puzzled. I mean, downright puzzled. First round, Katie Taylor's outside. Katie Taylor is good with there being not that much action. Because people are going to think to themselves, well, wow, the status quo right now in this competition has Katie Taylor winning the first two fights. If it's low volume, low action, why would the scoring here be anything other than a draw or Taylor winning? Right? Also, you can imagine Katie Taylor thinking to herself, man, I've got to take the crowd out of this fight, then showing up and realizing that Amanda Serrano's not trying to bring the crowd into the fight. Right? New York City fighter, and 3 rounds, 3 punches are thrown, 3 punches are landed in the first round, according to the telecast. You got to be kidding me. Right? So I didn't understand the first round. Amanda Serrano's there throwing a jab. Why even throw anything if Katie Taylor's outside the pocket? Right? Why even waste your energy throwing punches if you're going to allow Katie Taylor to stay outside the pocket? Right? The big revelation in this fight is that Katie Taylor's on her back foot. Right? And, she's willing to be on her back foot for prolonged stretches of the fight. And Amanda Serrano does nothing to hunt her down. Nothing. Right? The Williams Zepeda fight coming up against Shakur Stevenson. You'll know Stevenson has won the fight if he wins the fight. Right? You'll know Stevenson has won the fight if we're saying 70% into the fight, somebody has got to step it up. You'll know Stevenson has won the fight if after a round they say 3 punches landed in that round. Right, folks? I blame Amanda Serrano. I don't understand what just happened. Why have a third fight if it's not going to be a Bo Holyfield type dust-up? Right? Why have a third fight if it's not going to be a thriller in Manila? Right? I mean, I don't know what can be said. Everyone made a lot of money here. But this was a low volume fight, right? And of course, the person with the higher volume was Katie Taylor, the person who won the first 2 matches. Serrano, put differently, didn't give herself a chance to win. Serrano didn't even give herself a chance to bring the New York crowd in on the action. Right? This would be like going to the UK. Imagine a fight at Wembley where they're averaging 14 landed punches around. where, you know, there's some rounds where a single digit number of punches are being landed, right? Whoever is the visitor to the UK is going to think, man, I'm glad this British fighter doesn't seem to know how to galvanize his own base. Doesn't know that I'd be in trouble if they ran over to me throwing haymakers whether or not they landed. Right? So, big event. But Serrano had the wrong strategy. And quite frankly, after looking at this fight, I have no interest in a fourth. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Let me also add a little addendum here concerning the Stevenson-Zepeda fight. Folks, nothing I say in this video should be construed as me believing Stevenson's actually going to win that fight. Right? That's going to be an interesting fight. Let me just confidently say here, and I mean confidently say here, that I'm expecting that fight to have a lot more power punches and a hell of a lot more volume than this third Katie Taylor-Amanda Serrano fight did. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.